It
This
is a
conference will now
relatively
be recorded.
it's a difficult topic actually, so I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So wherever you are getting any doubt, just let me know. Huh? So as you know, the sensory input for maintenance of equilibrium comes from the three main system. One is your vision, and then your senses, that is tactile senses, your the proprioceptions, joints, and all from the paraspinal muscles, and most importantly the vestibular system. So the all the three systems are very closely integrated to one another, and they function as one unit so that you maintain the posture of your body. So at rest or stimulation, the afferent information from the three system is coordinated and processed in central nervous system to recognize the subject's position or displacement. So all these informations are gathered, they are processed, and then the whatever the output is again fed into the. So where the information is gathered, mostly it is gathered from visual and vestibular system, and then goes into via the vestibular nuclei, goes into the cerebellum, and also certain parts of the cerebral cortex, and then the cerebellum, which is mostly responsible, they fine tune it, and then the efferent comes onto the either the extraocular muscles or into the paraspinal group of muscles. So that is how it works. Now the visual system gives vertical and horizontal coordinates, and optic reflexes helps to maintain equilibrium. So the visual system continuously will be giving the feedback, because this is very important to for a gauge fixation. So if you want to fixate your gauge on one object, so this is required. The somatosensory system deals with superficial and deep sensation from special sensory receptor localized in skin, muscle, tendon, and joints. So what happens from there also sometimes the sensation are carried out, goes into the cerebellum, processed, and then again the feedback comes particularly to the extensor group of muscles. So stimulation is maybe due to pressure and tension produced by gravity and inertia. The vestibular system is of prime importance in maintenance of equilibrium. So it consists of the peripheral and central. So the peripheral vestibular system is usually the what you say the utricle, saccule, the semicircular canal. The central vestibular goes into the vestibular nerve, the vestibular nuclei, and other its connection with the different organs. Now, the peripheral vestibular system, what we see is the semicircular canal. Already I have told you for angular acceleration, and otolith system for linear acceleration. So otolith system means utricle and saccule. The central vestibular system and its connections. Okay. Now the receptors here is in the it is called as cristae in the semicircular canal and maculae in the utricle and saccule. So sorry, the first order neuron, they connect the sensory cell of the receptor to the vestibular nuclei. So from these cristae or from the maculae, the first order neuron starts and ends in the vestibular nuclei, which is in the floor of the fourth ventricle, lies in the midbrain. So from here, the second order neuron starts. This second order neuron goes in different directions. For example, one goes into the cerebellum, that is called the vestibulocerebellar tract. Another goes into the spinal cord, vestibulospinal tract, vestibuloocular tract. So these they then fan out the second order neurons. The Scarpa ganglion in the vestibular nerve within the internal auditory canal houses the cell bodies of the first order neuron. So the Scarpa's ganglion, it houses the first order. Now the vestibular nuclei, they are 4 in number: superior, medial, lateral, and descending. So they are 4: superior, medial, lateral, and descending. So these 4, and usually what it is, for your easy remembrance, you see that almost all of the nerve ending from the peripheral system, they relay in all the nuclei. Maybe some nuclei there is a dominant relay, some nuclei there is little relay, but invariably they relay in almost all the nuclei of the different type of nuclei in the vestibular nucleus. The second order neuron, the cell bodies are situated in vestibular nuclei and connect with what I told you, the oculomotor via the medial longitudinal fasciculus. So, and also through the reticular formation. So this oculomotor nuclei, they even go and communicate with the abducent nuclei and also with the trochlear nuclei. So why? Because this, you know, the formula LR6SO4 rest by 3. So the lateral rectus by the 6th cranial nerve, superior oblique by 4th cranial nerve, rest by 3rd. So the third, the oculomotor nuclei is the supplies the major part of the extraocular muscle. So the second order neuron from the vestibular nuclei goes to the oculomotor nuclei. So it goes ipsilaterally and it also goes contralaterally. So the through the medial longitudinal fasciculus. The anterior horn cell of spinal cord, the inferior part of medial longitudinal fasciculus, and also via the vestibulospinal and reticulospinal. These I have already told you. The vestibulospinal again has a medial and a lateral, and reticulospinal also has a medial and lateral pathways. To the cerebellar cortex by vestibulocerebellar pathways. To the temporal lobe, the insular cortex, that is, the insular cortex is the area in the cerebral cortex which processes the inputs from the vestibule. So the insular cortex situated in the temporal lobe by multisynaptic pathway. And the autonomic nervous system. So very important. Why autonomic nervous system is, suppose you are sleeping and then you get up and stand. So what happened when you stand now? There is lot of pooling of the venous blood on your leg, and then around 800 ml of blood gets pooled there. So what happens ki, that decreases the cardiac output, and also compromises the oxygen delivery to other vital organs. So what happens immediately is, this autonomic nervous system automatically it increases the heart rate, and also it causes pumping of the blood from the peripheral, like particularly the dependent part of the legs, onto the heart. So thereby preventing a syncope attack or a dizziness or something. Okay, am I clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
till now everything is clear for you. Good. So the third order neuron are motor neurons to the effector organ. So I told you one afferent pathway, so it has to come back. So the third order neurons are the efferent neurons. So they go to the end organ. So which is the end organ here? End organ is the eye and the extensor muscles of the body. That is the which is responsible for maintenance of posture. Mainly the neck muscles, the paraspinal muscles, the extensor muscles of the arms, limbs, which help to maintain the posture. So the vestibular nerve, it divides into, you know, superior and inferior vestibular nerve. So the superior vestibular nerve usually supplies the anterior and lateral semicircular canal, and the inferior vestibular nerve supplies to the posterior semicircular canal, via a singular nerve. So major part of the vestibular system is supplied by the superior vestibular nerve. The inferior vestibular nerve has supplied the posterior semicircular canal and a very small part of the saccule. Okay. So here you can see this is the semicircular canal here and the otolith organ. So here this is the first order neuron comes here and it relays the cell bodies lies in the Scarpa's ganglion here. Suppose let this be the internal auditory canal and then goes into and relays. You can see these are the four nuclei. Okay, let us say this is medial, lateral, superior and descending. Okay, sorry, medial, lateral, descending and superior. So you can see that there is a very, what you say, a very cross connection. It is not that from one part it will relay in one area only, but they have ramifications. So they can so suppose from utricle the afferent nerve can relay in superior, medial, lateral as well as descending. Okay, and then here let us come here then. So here you can see this is the lateral, this is the superior, this is the medial and this is the descending. So there are four nucleus here. Okay, and from here you can see these are the efferent outputs and going into the spinal ear, the lateral vestibulospinal and the medial vestibulospinal. So the from the information after getting processed in the cerebellum, they come into the fed into the vestibular nuclei, and from there via the vestibulospinal tract the information is passed on to the extensor muscles of the body. So that helps in maintaining the posture. Am I clear? Hello?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
clear?
Yes, sir.
Achha. So this is actually why I am asking you repeatedly. This is a difficult topic. So whenever you are having any problem, just you can just stop me and ask a question. There is no issue. Now the vestibular system. The main function of vestibular system is to generate information for the central nervous system with fourfold purpose. One is what? To provide general orientation of the body with respect to gravity, enable balanced locomotion and body position, readjust autonomic function after body reorientation, and gauge stabilization. So this I already told you how they do after body reorientation, and gauge stabilization is very important. Otherwise what happens ki you will not get a clear cut picture of anything, so unless and until your gauge is stabilized. So central processing of all this information in brain leads to specific outcome. The most important one is the vestibulo-ocular reflex. So that ensures gauge stabilization. The vestibulospinal reflex and vestibulocholic reflex ensure maintenance of upright position of the body and trunk and head stabilization in space. So very important. So through the vestibulospinal reflex. Okay, then orientation, navigation and perception of self position with respect to surrounding and gravity is mediated by vestibular cortex. Autonomic function adjustment after alteration of body orientation. So among these two, the vestibulo-ocular reflex, the vestibulospinal reflex, they take the precedence because one is responsible for gauge and another is responsible to to maintain the body in a upright position. You can see this is the brain receives input from lot of things. See, proprioception. This is a person, she's doing a yoga, she's standing on one leg. So that is how the information goes through the joint receptors from the hip, from the knee, from the ankle, as well as from the muscles, and goes into the brain. And from brain it is processed, and then the feedback comes to the what you say, the extensor muscle. Now you can see her, she's extending her hand. This helps in maintaining the balance and increasing the tone of the extensor group so that she doesn't fall down. From the utricle and saccule semicircular canal, again it goes into the cerebellum. From vision, it goes into the cerebellum. Autonomic functions, you know that from the cerebellum, see these are the output, see, these are the input and these are the outputs. So output is to maintain the circadian rhythm, to maintain the autonomic function. So I told you regarding the cardiac output. So in the cardiac output is increased, then the perfusion is maintained to the vital organ. Then balanced locomotion, you can see how they are able to jump over the wall so nicely without falling. Orientation and navigation and gauge stabilization, which is very very important, particularly in predators. So they have, because they free, when you chase after a animal, they don't run in a straight line, they try to move in a zigzag fashion. So that is how they try to confuse the predator, but still with the help of gauge stabilization, which is by major part is played by the vestibulo-ocular reflex, they help to keep the predator picture in the center of the fovea. So motion, decomposition and orientation in head. So every motion in space can be broken down into 3 rotational degrees of freedom: yaw, pitch and roll. So yaw is side to side movement, pitch is down to front to back, roll is just rotatory movement, and 3 translational movement. So left to right, up and down, fore and aft. So the semicircular canal measure predominantly rotation, whereas the maculae of utricle and saccule, they detect the translation movement, that is the horizontal movement. So these are the 3. In a, if it is occurring in a horizontal axis, it is called the pitch. In a vertical axis, it is called the yaw, and in a different third axis, it is called as the roll. Now, as you know, there are 3 semicircular canal on either side. So if you remember, in few classes when I was taking anatomy, I told that there are complementary to one another. So the horizontal canal of one is complementary to the horizontal canal of the opposite side, but that cannot be said for the what you say, the vertical canals. So the vertical canal has the 2 things. One is a RALP plane and a LARP plane. RA means right anterior, left posterior. So they are in sync. So they act in one, as a one. So right anterior means, you know, superior semicircular canal, and left posterior. Similarly, left superior or and right posterior. So for easy remembrance, we have made it RALP and LARP. So right anterior, left posterior plane, left anterior, right posterior plane. So these, the right anterior and left posterior, they are parallel to one another. They are parallel to one another, and the left anterior and right posterior are also parallel to one another. The horizontal canal makes an angle of approximately 30 degrees with respect to the horizontal axis of upright head, whereas the angle of vertical canal are approximately 45 degrees with the sagittal plane of the head. You can see here, the horizontal is not fully horizontal, but it makes an angle of 35 degree with the horizontal. And here you see the left anterior canal and the right posterior canal, they are in sync, they are parallel, whereas the left posterior and right anterior are parallel. So these are called as the complementary canals. So So they complement one another. Are you following? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. Now here these are the pictures. You can see here this part is the crus commune here. Okay, and this is the left posterior canal. Non-ampullary end is here, and the left anterior canal. This is the crus commune. And this is the ambulatory end of the superior canal, ambulatory end of lateral canal. This is the lateral canal here, and the left posterior canal ambulatory end is somewhere there. Okay. So movement detection, basic law of physics are responsible for detection of movement or orientation by vestibular system. So first law of Newton states that object in motion will stay in motion until acted upon by a force. So when a body is moving, unless and until you stop it or you apply a brake or there is some forces acting against it, it won't stop. So the force can either change the object's direction or speed. The second law states that the force acting on an object equals to mass times acceleration. That is, force is equal to mass into acceleration. So these are the two laws of Newton. And during daily life, body and head are continuously moving, and these movements are always related to forces, that is acceleration. And these movements are sensed in the vestibular organ by a rigid coupling of sensory epithelium to the body structure, to the bony structure. So why this coupling of sensory epithelium to bony structure means the macula of utricle and saccule are fixed to the underlying membranous labyrinth, and then that is also connected to the bone. So that is how it is written. That's why it is written coupling of sensory epithelium to the bony structure. So the otolith organs, they detect acceleration and send encoded signals to brain that process the information. So the orientation of otolith organ is saccule and utricle. So saccule detects predominantly a vertical linear movement, and utricle is a horizontal linear movement. Now the utricle, can you see my hand?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This is the saccule, and this is the utricle. Okay, this is the macula of utricle is like this. The macula of saccule is like this. So if you go a linear acceleration, the saccule, the utricle will detect. Vertical, the saccule will detect. Like suppose you are moving in a lift. So all of a sudden the lift starts. So what happens when, and how they can also detect the gravitational pull, because they are always dragged by the gravity. Always they are dragged down. Gravity always pull things down. So if the saccule is here like this, it will be dragged down always by the gravity. So when you are going in a lift, no, that now the pull is away in a opposite direction, so they will detect it. And utricle will detect a linear movement. So during natural movement, the otolith organ sense the acceleration and to initiate postural and eye reflexes mediated by vestibular nuclei. So diverting the appropriate signals either to limb, trunk and neck muscles via vestibulospinal or eye muscles via vestibulo-ocular. So whatever signals comes from the utricle and saccule, they are processed, they are sent, they go through the Scarpa's ganglion to the vestibular nuclei, then to the central communication, to the mostly to the cerebellum, and also they from the vestibular nuclei they also go to the contralateral third nerve, sixth nerve nuclei, as well as the fourth nerve nuclei, as well as ipsilateral third nerve and fourth nerve and sixth nerve nuclei via the to mediate the vestibular ocular reflex. And Then after processing, the output comes through the vestibulospinal tract down, and also reticulospinal tract down into the extensor muscles of the body. When there is no movement, the otolith detect the direction of gravity. So I told you, because the pull of gravity is always there on them. Why? Because these otolith, you see, they have the otoconia, that is calcium carbonate crystals are there on the surface. So they are relatively heavy and are more prone to distortion by gravitational pull. Am I clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello? So compared to the cupula of which is there in the semicircular canal, these are heavy things, the otolith membrane. So they are more prone to gravitational pull. The semicircular canal. So here what happened? They are responsible for detection of angular acceleration or deceleration. You got my point. Suppose you are moving at a uniform speed. Even though you are moving in circle, if you are moving at a uniform speed, after 30 seconds the semicircular canal will stop detecting. So only when there is a acceleration or only when there is a deceleration, then only they will detect. So how? See, when a body is rotating at constant angular speed, the only force that acts on the system is centripetal force, which is a fictitious force. This implies that no force triggers the sensory epithelium of semicircular canal during constant rotation in a way that would move the cupula. So now what happens when you are moving at a constant speed? No, the cupula is there, it is constantly, it is remaining in one place because the speed is same. So when you slow down or when you increase the speed, then the cupula either moves front or goes back. Then the distortion starts. Then the semicircular canal can detect the distortion, and then semicircular canal will get activated. So here you see, this is the semicircular canal, so model of semicircular canal filled with endolymph. So here you have whole endolymph over here. Okay, and characterized by moving piston representing the cupula. So this is the cupula. Okay, so at starting moment t0, let us say, where is the t0? This is the t0. Okay, this is the starting point. The whole system starts rotating counterclockwise. So this is the direction of rotation in a counterclockwise. So that as the person turns the head, the whole system moves. The whole system moves. So after a time interval of t, this is the t. So after time interval of t, the free floating piston has slightly lagged behind, indicated by theta, with respect to canal itself. Now the canal has moved this much, but the piston has lagged behind here little bit. That why? Because the canal is a bony structure, so it is connected to the body. It moves with body, but the cupula will take little time because of rest, inertia of rest. And then what happens? Key this, so there you will get a little bit of time lag over here. So with respect to canal length, so P is the number of degrees that the endolymph rotates. See, the endolymph rotates from here to here. P. So endolymph rotates from P. This much of degree the endolymph rotates. Q is the number of degree the head rotates. So the head rotates more, the endolymph rotates less. Why? Because of inertia. Not only one factor, inertia, there is shearing factor also. Because when the endolymph moves here, no, the wall of the semicircular canal will also have some shearing effect. So that will also drag the endolymph. Okay, and the number of degree the head rotates, and q dot dot is the angular acceleration of the head. So this is the nothing but the acceleration of head. And capital R stands for the radius of the semicircular canal, and this is the lumen of the semicircular canal. But here you see, if the head movement, whatever it happens, but the endolymph lags behind little bit only because of inertia. So when it lags behind here, that causes a little disproportion, because then what happens when you stop rotating, the head, the endolymph will still move because it is in now inertia of motion. So till the shearing force will stop the endolymph completely. So then what happens ki, till that the dizziness sensation will be there till the complete movement of endolymph stops. So semicircular canal respond to angular acceleration and deceleration. That is already we have discussed. The three canals which lie at three different planes are situated at right angles to each other. So any change in position of head can be detected because they are placed in such a way that in all the three planes you can pick up. The one that lies at right angle to the axis of rotation is most stimulated. Now, if you see the horizontal canal is there, if you rotate the head to right and left, that is maximally stimulated. So the horizontal canal responds maximum to rotation on the vertical axis. You are rotating right, you are rotating left, or you are rotating like this. So that causes maximum stimulation. So this is the picture you can see from the ampulla. This is the neuroepithelium here, the cristae, and you can see this is the cupula, and these are the different hair cells which are embedded in the gelatinous matrix of cupula. So the cupula, it just acts like a diaphragm actually. It acts like a diaphragm, and you can see this part is attached to the wall and attached to the bony part of the semicircular canal. So whenever there is a movement of endolymph, the cupula either goes in this direction. Sorry. So the cupula can go here or go here. Wherever it goes now, and when the movement stops now, this comes back into the central position. But when you are moving at constant speed now, after some time the cupula comes into the center position, and now because there is no acceleration or deceleration, it remains in this position, center position. So thereby doesn't stimulate the semicircular canal. Am I clear now? Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now coming to the biomechanics, when the canal is rotated about an axis, three forces act upon the endolymph and cupula in the canal. One is the inertial, I told you. See, so that is also a law of Newton. See, body continues to be, once in rest, continues to be in rest unless a force is applied. So in order to move anything, you require some force. So that, suppose you apply X amount of force, a part of X is lost to overcome the inertia. So that goes everywhere. So even in hearing also, here also, that inertia force is directly proportional to the mass of the endolymph and cupula. So how much endolymph is there and what is the weight of the cupula is directly proportional to that. The elastic restoring force, the cupula has to come back to the original position because it is now distorted. It has to come back. So the cupula, elastic restoring force of cupula, that positions the cupula back to central position after stimulation. So what happens? Suppose you are rotating in a merry-go-round, and suddenly when you stop, when you get down, you still feel dizzy. How it is? It is because the endolymph is still rotating, although you have stopped. But because of inertia of motion, the endolymph is still rotating, albeit now in the opposite. So you feel that you are about to fall in the opposite direction. So now that is how, because see, when what happens when you stop rotating, the cupula is attached to your body, but the endolymph is still moving, so it will distort the cupula, push the cupula, and when the cupula comes back to original position, then also you will have a post rotatory nystagmus. So one is because of inertia you will have, because the cupula is distorted by endolymph flow, and then when the endolymph flow comes down, the cupula has to come back to the original position. So that will again displace some endolymph in the reverse direction. So that is called as the post-rotatory nystagmus. And third is the viscous force that act upon the fluid when sliding past the internal wall of the tube. So that depends on the viscosity. So if that will also cause a slight amount of hindrance to the flow of the endolymph. Now coming to nystagmus. So nystagmus is a sign, and vertigo is the symptom. This you remember. So nystagmus means it is a rhythmic, oscillatory, involuntary movement of the eyeball. So it should be rhythmic, it should be oscillatory, and it should be involuntary movement of the eyeball. So it occurs as a response to head rotation and consists of a combination of slow phase or drift and a fast phase. So this sawtooth pattern is called nystagmus. So the slow phase is the actual vestibular phase. The fast phase is the central correction phase. But because what happens, the slow phase is very difficult to detect. So the direction of nystagmus is always taken in the direction of the fast phase. So because you can see that one, but slow phase you can't see. But actual nystagmus is because of the slow phase. So I'll just show you this picture. Can you see? See, can you see the small undulation and sudden drop? Can you appreciate?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You see here, small fluctuations are there, and then a
Yes,
sudden drop. This sudden drop here is the fast phase. This is the slow phase. This is what you will get a recording of electronystagmography. When you do a electronystagmography, no, this is the recording you get. So these all small things, short tooth. See the typical description we came here, no. The short tooth pattern is called nystagmus. So we are getting it here, the short tooth pattern, and a sudden drop indicate this is the fast phase. So here the nystagmus is this is the fast phase of the nystagmus. Then again slow phase, and again you get a drop in the fast phase. So the slow phase, however, represents the actual vestibular output and is quantified. The semicircular canal and otolith provide input for the vestibulo-ocular reflex. The horizontal vestibulo-ocular reflex compensates for both horizontal rotation and horizontal translation. The former is due to canal system, whereas the latter is due to the utricular system. This is a picture I've shown to you. Now here you see. This is the nerve, the what you say, the afferent nerve goes and relays in the vestibular nuclei. Okay, the vestibular nuclei, and then here it goes to the abducent nuclei, the ipsilateral oculomotor nuclei. Okay, and also goes to the opposite side. Okay, so this, now you can see the right lateral rectus and left medial rectus. So when the right side of canal is cooled down, this is an example. This is a caloric test actually. We are seeing application of cold water. So what happens when we apply cold water? The temperature changes here, and then because while the temperature changes here, no, sorry, the temperature changes here. Why? Because as the temperature changes, what it does, because of convection, the temperature changes here also in the endolymph. So the endolymph become more heavier here, and then the current, as it gets heavier, no, so it comes down. So when it comes down, then the motion starts. So here in the lateral canal, so this is the ampulla. So the movement occurs away from the ampulla. Movement occurs away from the ampulla. So that is called as the ampulofugal lymphokinesis. That is convection current towards cooling. So because when things cool down, no, it becomes heavy and they come down. So then that is how it sets up the current, and this ampulofugal lymphokinesis causes a decreased output, because in the lateral semicircular canal, a ampulopetal, means any flow towards the petal, towards the canal, will stimulate the lateral semicircular canal. But a ampulofugal flow in the lateral semicircular canal will cause depression of the lateral semicircular canal, whereas the opposite is true for the vertical canal. So here the vertical canal, the ampulofugal flow will stimulate and the ampulopetal flow will depress. So this you keep in mind. The ampulopetal flow stimulates the lateral canal, whereas the ampulofugal flow stimulates the vertical canal. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So semicircular canal stimulation and vestibulo-ocular reflex generation. So how stimulation of canal leads to a generation of vestibulo-ocular reflex. So the peripheral sensor transmit motion to the brain through frequency coding. Now if you see here, these are the vestibular neurons now, so they keep on firing. So because this semicircular canal, at rest also they fire. The firing rate is say 90 spikes per second. That is at rest. So when they are stimulated, now the firing rate goes up to 200 to 300 spikes per second, and when they are suppressed, the firing rate comes down to 20 spikes per second. So this is how the brain interprets. By seeing the difference in the firing rate, the brain will interpret which side is stimulated and which side is depressed. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is good.
Yes,
So
sir.
what happened? So when, suppose, let us say this canal is stimulated now. So once suppose this is the left side and right side, so it's the right external auditory meatus. So if right lateral canal is stimulated now, the left one should be depressed. Then if both start firing now, then the brain will get confused. Okay, so when the right canal is stimulated, so here the spikes will, firing rate will be in the nerve will be almost 300 spikes per minute. So this comes into the vestibular nucleus. From vestibular nucleus, this goes into the abducens oculomotor, and then it goes into the muscles of the thumb. Now there are two pathways actually. One is this, what we are talking about is the excitatory pathway. Now there is another pathway known as the inhibitory pathway. Now how it works, suppose let us say the right lateral rectus muscle is stimulated, but for a good conjugate movement, the medial rectus should be inhibited. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
So simultaneously, when left medial rectus is stimulated, the left lateral rectus should be inhibited. So what happens now? So in the vestibular nuclei itself, you have interneurons. So among them, there are stimulatory, there are inhibitory. So when you find here that the right side is stimulated now, what it does, the inhibitory neurons are here only. So when the inhibitory neurons are stimulated, they directly dominate the effect of the excitatory neurons. So what they do when the excitatory neurons are stimulated, they not only transmit it here, but they also over to the opposite side, and then they excite the inhibitory neurons on the opposite side. So when they excite the inhibitory neurons, no, the inhibitory neurons will suppress the neural activity on the opposite side. So thereby, what happens ki the right medial rectus and left lateral rectus will be depressed. So what happens? Then the conjugate movement of the eye will occur in the direction opposite to the head movement. So when you are moving, suppose you are looking at, for example, see, you are looking at me now. Turn your head either to the right or to the left of me. You see, if you turn to right of me, in order to look at me, your eye has to turn in opposite direction. So that is called as a vestibular ocular reflex. Am I clear?
So could you please repeat the inhibitory effect on the opposite side once again?
See, here you know that part, that picture I don't have. If I have just 1 minute. No, unfortunately, I don't have that picture with me. Okay, but what happens? I'll just in this vestibular nuclei here, you have neurons, you have interneurons. So among them, there is one set which are excitatory neurons and also inhibitory neurons. So on the right side, you have excitatory, inhibitory. On the left side also, you have excitatory and inhibitory. Now, suppose this right side excitatory neurons are stimulated now, automatically the inhibitory neurons will be suppressed. Is it okay? Are you following now?
Yes, sir.
Where and then what happens? This message goes and crosses over to the opposite side. So here what it does, here the inhibitory neurons gets excited, because what happens, there is there is a means this excitatory neurons also gives also gives a feedback to the inhibitory neuron, and the inhibitory neuron also has communication with the excitatory neurons. Am I clear now?
Yes, sir.
So they have a positive and negative feedback mechanism among themselves. So once the here when this side excitatory neurons is activated now, what it does, it activates the opposite side inhibitory neurons. So once they are activated now, this side is totally, it is depressed. So message goes to brain from only one side, right side, not from the left side. So the spike rate, what happens, here is 300 now, here it becomes 20. So now when it becomes 20, because of activation of the inhibitory neurons, the brain will realize that there is some impulse coming from the right side, not from the left side. That is how the brain will coordinate the movement. You got my point now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, okay, this much for today. So this is the vestibule. Actually, it is little difficult to understand. So at normal resting, discharge rate of approximately 90 spikes per second is modulated, such that increase of this rate corresponds with an excitation and decrease with inhibition. So let us see the polarization of hair cell in horizontal semicircular canal is such that deflection of stereocilia in the cupula towards the kinocilium, that is ampulopetal or utriculopetal. I told you in the lateral canal, the ampulopetal or utriculopetal stimulation is a excitatory stimulation. whereas in the vertical canal, it is the reverse way. The ampulofugal causes a depolarization. So that results in hair cell depolarization and consequently the activity of the primary afferent neuron increases. So that causes a deflection of stereocilia away from kinocilium. That is ampulofugal or utriculofugal, results in hyperpolarization and decreased primary afferent neuron activity. So this is how it works actually. The mechano transduction. So the movement of stereocilia. I have told you in cochlear chapter also how the physiology of hearing works. Here also it is roughly the same. So movement towards the kinocilia causes a depolarization. Movements away from the kinocilia causes hyperpolarization. Now, one question you might ask, sir, how you are saying कि ampulopetal flow in one canal causes stimulation, whereas ampulofugal in another causes stimulation. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So, what happens here? Ki, sorry. So here you see the ampulopetal flow in lateral canal is excitatory. Why this is because of the orientation of these hair cells. You got my point. It is because of the orientation of the hair cells. The hair cells are oriented in such a way that when there is a ampulopetal flow, then the stereocilia gets deflected towards the kinocilia. Whereas in case of the vertical canal, when there is an ampulofugal flow, then the stereocilia gets deflected towards the kinocilia. Am I clear now for you?
Sir, here when we were mentioning about the piston movement and all, because the model, the piston was moving freely, so it had, I mean, there it is understood. But then when we come to cupula, it is fixed at a certain position. So to some extent, until it is moving along with the endolymph, we are, I mean, the depolarization is possible. But after some extent, it is restrained to from the movement.
No,
So how can depolarization?
cannot move away no with the endolymph. So it has to come back.
But
It has to come back.
If endolymph is continuing in the same direction, then how does it come back?
No, that what I told. It only detects acceleration and deceleration. Semicircular canal only detects acceleration and deceleration. That is why when after 30 seconds I told you no, in semicircular canal, if the speed endolymph movement speed is becomes constant no, then the cupula comes back to the original primary position.
Okay, sir.
Only when
Yes.
acceleration or when there is a deceleration, then only the deflection occurs. And that is why they are only concerned with acceleration. When you are moving at a constant speed now, after 30 seconds, there is no output going from the semicircular canal. So that is why when you are moving in a merry-go-round, at a constant speed, you don't feel the what you say the vertigo. The moment you get down, then you start to fall. Is it not? The moment you step out, then you
Yes.
start to, because then what happens? Now the body is moving, the endolymph is moving. You got my point? No. So both are moving now. So there is no relative movement between the two. When there is no related movement now, then it is very difficult to detect, particularly in semicircular canal. But when there is, you stop, then the endolymph will move, then there is a relative motion. That will cause distortion of the cupula, and then only you will get the impulse again will start. You got my point now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this much for today. When we start next class, I will just start from here. This is a little difficult chapter. To next class, I will finish it off. So once you understand the fundamental, it will be easy for you. Okay. Just hold on. I will take the attendance. Just give me a one. Just hold on. Any other doubt you have, you can ask meanwhile. Don't leave the class and go. You will lose your attendance. I am telling you. Hey, come where standing? I thought. Any doubt? Any doubt you have to ask? Okay, then we'll stop the class now. We'll meet again. Whichever day possible to finish the rest of the topic. Okay.
Thank you.